I'm Mike and welcome back to the Hangar Hideout. On today's episode, we're going to make this car make some cool new noises. Because we're going to install a supercharger and like it whines and the blow off valve and stuff. For those of you who are newer, we pulled the motor, we built it up, we got new pistons, new rods, new cam, custom grind, injectors, we put in a new fuel system, I don't know, other things probably too. And now it's time to throw just a bunch of boost at it. So I bought the A&A kit and I went with the T-trim. So today, let's just run through the installation. Now with that said, if you actually look at the instructions, it's a lot of pictures. And it's a total of, I think, 66 steps. I read it. Took me a while. It was hard because I'm still learning how to read, and there were a lot of big words. But the first half doesn't even pertain to me because I'm probably, like a lot of you, we've already done a lot of it. We've already pinned the crank. We already have our injectors. We really just need to do the blower and intercooler. So, fingers crossed this is easy. Those are everyone's famous last words, that it's gonna be easy. Idiot. Okay, so if you're like seeing what I'm seeing, raise the car, done, disconnect battery. Well, my battery's like dead as a doorknob anyways. I'll disconnect it. And then we have to take things off to get to the spark plugs, but we just put fresh spark plugs in on the motor install. And we gotta do the fuel rails with the Schrader valve to remove pressure. Well, we have the new fuel system already in there. Don't have to do that. Here we go. Okay. So we're finally getting into something here. So we have to remove the radiator shroud. Really everything in the front of the car that's plastic kind of has to move. The intake. I have to take the Ram off. Ram for sale. Anybody wants one? So let's start there. So I'm going to start by removing some of this plastic here. We got a couple of bolts there and there, both on the same size. Some of the hoses are already missing already because we've done that. Then I'm going to start removing everything from the throttle body, the mass airflow and whatnot, and then start taking care of the Ram. I'm just going to try to take some of this out. Okay, fun fact, most of this was barely even connected. So I did buy the car this way. No, I didn't. I took it off. I'm trying to blame it on somebody else, but it was me. I did it. Be gone, you. Next, I'm going to take off the tensioner here. It's connected to the water pump, and then it's time to get under the car. So to remove the tensioner pulley, I actually removed the actual pulley, and to do that, I use the professional method of removing the bolt and hitting it, and now it's somewhere in this garage. Oh, I see it. Found it. Be nicer to your car. Well, it looks a whole lot cleaner in here without that shroud. Fun fact, there are 5 bolts that hold the shroud in at the bottom and then 2 on the side for like clips, and I was missing half of them. So whoever installed the Ram definitely didn't put things back in. That one wasn't me, for real. Okay, everything in front of the radiator is moved away. So let's see what our next step is. Sway bar, so we could get room for the pinning. Yeah, I don't need that. Fan assembly for the pinning, no. ABS for the pinning, no. Removing the steering rack, moving that out of the way, no, don't need to do that. What do we need to do? Pinning, pinning, pinning. Oil. They're all self-contained basically now. Don't have to do that. Don't have to do... Oh, okay. We got our next step. We have to connect the oil line. So here's my thought. If you just do injectors and you do the pinning beforehand, or if you've already done that, then you get to skip like half of these steps. Hi, future Mike here. Why don't you go ahead and bring it in close. I'm gonna tell you about my woes of stupidity. So this comes with the kit. And I have the V3 self-contained unit. So like the oil stays inside. You don't need a feed. And I got this. There's no connectors, but the directions said, no, you need to put one on. So I call my manager, Reach, and I'm like, tell me I'm being dumb. I don't need an oil line. It's self-contained. And he goes, no, this is to drain the oil when you do an oil change. That would explain it. I'm embarrassed. I'm embarrassed to say I wasted maybe an hour looking at where I can install this and what fittings I would need to make it work, when really I didn't need it. And I just wasted time, and it's already precious and limited already. I'm so stupid. Learn from my mistakes. God, I'm dumb. Now that my stupidity is out of the way, we're gonna do the air dam brackets. There's 4 of these, 4 holes on that new air dam. Half of these are gonna use the existing holes, and then half it says drill. So I'll figure out where to drill. I'm gonna do my best to show you what I'm doing down there. I told you I'm gonna do my best to show you. So here under the car, we gotta put the new shroud on. So I got the bracket on there, and then we're gonna have to drill it into this support bar. I think they said it's like a 1/4 inch drill bit. Now I just gotta drill the hole, and then we're gonna mount the dam. Holes are drilled. Now I just use these puppies to mount that dam. Damn! Okay, I got a bit ahead of myself, but we're under the passenger side. There's a little skid plate right here that I already removed. And there used to be the horns right here, but I took them out already. There's just one bolt that you have to take off and one connector, which is right there. And I can't remember what the heck we have to do with it. So let's go read the directions. Okay, I'm not gonna lie. I had no idea what the instructions were telling me to do with the horn, so I just left it, and we'll deal with it later. Next, it wants you to go to the driver's side, and it says to do something with this secondary air pump. Surprise! It's never been hooked up for me because of my long tube headers, and I tuned all that out anyway, so I'm just gonna remove this air pump for the next step, because I don't know what the actual step is. But that's like weight reduction. That's at least a horsepower. For the horns, I feel like this is the best angle to see. Here I'm at the front passenger side of the car here. So we're gonna wanna take off these supports. So this is where the radiator mounts to the frame. So we're gonna have to take off the front one and the rear one to put spacers on. And I believe the front one is where I'm gonna put the horn, since the horn plugs in like right over here somewhere. Here's what the driver's side looks like, and you could see a little bit more. So we got to remove the 2 bolts, this one, and you can't see one up top, where this radiator, skid bar, bracket, whatever you want to call it, is mounted to the frame. We got to remove both of those because spacers are going to go in between the frame and the bracket. It comes with 4 spacers. The long one is on the rear on both sides, and the short one is on the front one. So that's what they're going to look like on all 4. That's the front one. The rear one's back there, and the other 2 are right behind me. So with my made-up step of removing this secondary air pump that literally wasn't connected to anything for the longest time, now we get to do something a little bit fun. We get to put in the rear bracket with the tensioner pulley, which I already removed because it told me to do that. Remember how it goes together? I already forgot. So here's our beautiful bracket. Just to keep in mind, these bottom 2 bolts, these are our primary bolts. And these are the stock tensioner pulley bolts. So whatever was holding the tensioner pulley, that's what's going right back in there. These 2 silver are the only 2 silver bolts that it comes with. They're about 9 millimeters long. Those are gonna hold it to the heads, and it's gonna have the brace behind it on the top one. You could see where it goes in. There's a little slot for it. And then you're also gonna need a spacer on the other side. The 2 copper bolts are gonna go on the bottom here. And then the 2 longer ones, the longest one is gonna go on the top because it's got that extra bracket. And then the bottom one is the other big one. Make sure to put these bolts in before you put the bracket on because like it's not coming out. So do that first. Don't mind this fuel line. I gotta trim it and put a 90-degree here. So it's just here temporarily. Don't look at it. Now let's go on to our next step, which I think we're gonna go ahead and trim up this radiator here. So we're gonna have to make room for the intake piping, and then we're gonna also need that little plastic shroud intake, which is gonna be about right here. So I'm gonna use a Dremel and just trim this puppy up. Now we're gonna put the main bracket on the supercharger. You're gonna have to use 5 of these spacers with the flat ends. Flat ends go towards the supercharger. And we're gonna do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This one's gonna be missing. So it comes with 3 bolts because I think other 2 are gonna be part of the rear bracket. So now we just put this puppy on. Like that. See you in a bit. All right, time to get this belt in here. We're gonna go around the crank, flat side on the idler. Then we're gonna go around power steering. And it said, don't put it on the alternator yet so we can have some slack. It's about time someone cuts me some slack, right? Like, give me a break. Okay, now remove it from here. Got a big loop. Let's set the supercharger near in place. We got our spacers. Don't forget your spacers. So these pupperoonies, remember, this is the small one. Goes on the bottom left. Get those guys ready. This whole supercharger thing. All right, first, let's get this puppy tucked down in here a little bit. Now let's get this belt aligned. So the bottom has got to go around the tensioner, around that rib, around that rib, and then that goes to the crank. So that is lined up. Let's go ahead and slap this puppy on in here. Let's see if we could get a bolt or 2 done so I don't have to hold this super heavy thing. So not only do you want to make sure you got your belt lined up, but make sure that you got these spacers on, because they are going to be really hard to put on after the fact. All right. Not too shabby. Not too shabby. Yeah, the biggest recommendation is get friends to help you. All right, close enough. Do we just say my car's blown down? And then we don't even have to finish? Is that it? Are we done? Are we there yet? Hello? I got the blower snug on there, so I'm like technically supercharged. Huh? That's pretty cool. Once you get to this point, just recheck how your belt's going. Make sure it's under the crank, and you got all that fun stuff. If you're doing this by yourself, get a friend, or I hope to God you have a good back, because holy cow, did this kill my back. Ow. Now we got to put this sliding idler back in. It goes in sitting like this. To get this in, it recommends take off the bottom nearest bolt and spacer of the supercharger. That's after you get everything else snug. So this guy's not going anywhere. So take this, slide it in, bolt it in. This one with the goofy washer goes down here where it slides up and down. And this one with nothing special goes on top. Once you got that slider back on, I put this guy back on, the spacer and the main bolt, and I have it just kind of hand tight, not even hand tight. And you could see that the belt is going to go on top of this spring tensioner. And what we're going to do is on this bolt down here at the bottom, this one we're going to pull down left and tighten this puppy up. And we're going to want to hold it down and then tighten the 2 bolts on that spring tensioner. So it should be fairly tight. It doesn't have to be like crazy tight unless you got some crazy horsepower numbers, which maybe you do, I don't know. But if you do, you're probably not watching this video. I got the breather mounted up. They actually supplied this cap with the line already on it, so that's cool. You didn't have to do anything. And then I went ahead and I trimmed up the radiator here and here, because the intake piping is gonna need to come out and the piping off of the supercharger. This is a prime example of function over fashion. This does not look pretty, but it's gonna be covered up. So, I mean, who really cares? So the way I did it, I have an angle grinder, I have a die grinder, And I'm not gonna lie, those things terrify me because I don't want to go blind once one of the wheels breaks. So on one of them, I tried to use a saw. Saw worked really well. And on the other side, I just used cutters. Cutters, and then you rock it back and forth with pliers. So if you're like me, or you just don't have the tools, it's super easy. It's aluminum, and aluminum is soft. Next, we're gonna install this intercooler air dam bracket thing, whatever you wanna call it. This is the main one, and you're gonna need 5 of these metal clips. They came off of the OG air dam plastic thing. I don't know what you call this, but they were at the bottom. So all we gotta do is put these on here. It's gonna sit in the car like this being the front, and then these bottom is gonna attach to the front of the bumper. So let's go ahead and put these on, and then we'll put it in the car. The bolts up here, the 2 that it mounts from, are 10mm stock bolts that were on the stock air lid. I didn't have the stock air box, so I just found 2 10mm bolts, and we're gonna wing it. Here is what we look like all completed. So these guys just bolt right into the bumper. Then we have these 2, so it comes with 6 bolts, and they're all the self-setting screws. So you just drill through, you essentially make your own holes. One of them goes into the rail on the other side as well. And then 2 of them just bolt each side of the bracket together. And now we get to move on to the intercooler. Thanks for watching today's episode.
Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.
It's free. It's easy. All it takes is like that much effort.
And while you're doing that effort, hit the notification bell so you can stay up to date whenever we post a new episode. So, see you on the next episode.
As always,